Well, hello again. And another week has flashed by. It's the 23rd of November. Where has this year gone? 2025. So let's have a quick look. And it's 12:46 in the afternoon. Coming up to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, how deep was the steaming pile that I had to wade through this week to be able to comment on what's happened with regard to the release of the Dan Farah comedy movie, Age of Disclosure? Well, there's a little bit. Let's see how it goes. Interestingly, I saw an article from the New York Times that basically said this is all complete and utter rubbish. Not a scrap of tangible evidence is produced. Pretty much the sort of thing I've been saying. So if you're watching the channel, Mr. New York Times, thank you very much for the view. Although I strongly suspect that's a very common opinion. Now, interestingly, the New York Times was the paper that started all this 8 years ago with the Leslie Keane and I can't remember the fella's name now, Rosenblum or something. They were the ones that actually kicked all this stuff off, you know, with these with the Tic Tac videos and the. I'm sure Lou Elizondo is very grateful to Leslie Keane for omitting an awful lot of the narrative so that it could be pushed in the direction of E.T. is coming here. And Leslie Keane has admitted that herself, that she did that. Because that article's probably bought him his bar and grill. But now the New York Times has changed its tune. It's no longer putting this forward as, you know, this could possibly be going on. It's now saying, the reporter that wrote that said, I've seen the film and it's just a complete load of rubbish. You'd have to be an imbecile to believe this, you know. You would need the IQ of a cheese and pickle sandwich to take any testimony in this movie, seriously. It's amazing that I could tell that without even watching it, you know. I just saw one or two clips and that told me all I needed to know. As I mentioned in the last video, I'm not going to go through it all again, but the people that Dan Farah thinks credible really aren't, you know, all of the usual suspects. You know, Chris Mellon with his balloon, you know, Lou Elizondo with his chandelier and his crops, his irrigation circles in crops. Yeah, it's Stratton with his ridiculous werewolf stories. It's all complete and utter rubbish. And the reviews apparently are reflecting that. I don't think I've seen, unless there's one or two dyed-in-the-wool fanboy YouTube channels that I've had a look at that are saying, oh yeah, well, you know, people think Lou's not credible. Well, we think Lou's credible. And I thought, well, have they actually looked at what Lou's been saying? What Lou Elizondo has been saying? You know, his telekinetic power, his remote viewing ability. He was the Darth Vader of Guantanamo Bay. Here's an image of a huge alien mothership, and it's a reflection of a chandelier in a window. Big UFO hovering over a field and its crop irrigation circles. So do these dyed-in-the-wool fanboys know what these people have been saying? Do they know Stratton saying he was infected with a poltergeist at Skinwalker Ranch? And that he turned his house into a paranormal Disneyland? He saw a creature there that looked like the alien from the Predator movies, and he had werewolves running around in his garden. Do these people know that's the sort of thing these people have been saying? Anyway, let's not repeat last week's video. Let's just get on with it, shall we? So I just thought that was curious. You know, New York Times is driving nails into this comedy movie, Age of Disclosure. And it was the New York Times that kicked it all off in 2017 with Leslie Keane's nonsense. you know, debunk Nimitz videos. Hope the wind noise is not too severe. And the guys are still building the house over the way. They've been a bit quiet for a bit, so I thought I'll just dive out and see if I can knock this video out before they finish their sandwiches. So, Coulthart tells us that the new comedy film, Age of Disclosure by Dan Farah, has people telling us the alleged Roswell ET spacecraft crash was real. Now, I haven't seen the film. Coulthart is telling us that that's something that's presented in this movie by Dan Farah. You know, everybody and his dog knows that's not true. You know, it was Mogul Balloon String number 4. The guy that ran the Mogul Balloon project said he fell about laughing when he read in the Roswell record about the RAAF capturing the flying disc. I'll leave a link below just in case you haven't seen Mac Brazel's statement. Remember, Mac Brazel was the guy that ran the ranch that this wreckage was found on, and he went out there and he found this wreckage on June the 14th. It was so unimpressive that he didn't report it for 3 weeks until July the 7th. That's how unimpressive it was. Brazel described the wreckage as balsa wood sticks, tin foil, strips of rubber, a cardboard fin stuck to a surface with Scotch tape. Now, hands up everybody that thinks that extraterrestrials would cross the galaxy to shop in terrestrial hardware stores to buy Scotch tape. Personally, I don't. Well, you'll probably find some fanboys out there that will go, well, you can't say that. You can't anthropomorphise. Anyway, I'll leave a link to Mac Brazel's statement below. So if you think Mac Brazel is describing the wreckage from an alien spacecraft, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see if I can organise some medication for you. Coulthard laps this up. He loves it. Coulthard wants the Roswell story to be true, because a lot of this is anchored to that. You know, we're told they've been trying to reverse this alien technology for 80 years. So they're talking about the Roswell crash, and it was a balloon. It was a balloon string. You know, but Coulthard wants us to believe it was an alien spacecraft because he's got skin in the game. He's got a book to sell. He makes a living out of spruiking all this extraterrestrial rubbish. So, you know, people in this movie claim we've been trying to reverse engineer ET tech for 80 years. So that's, to me, they're implying the Roswell crash is the real deal. It's not. So you can straight away you can put a line through the whole statement, can't you? If the Roswell crash wasn't an alien spacecraft, we haven't been trying to reverse engineer this stuff for 80 years. You put a line through that immediately. So, Coulthart also tells us, someone in this movie tells us, the Virginia ET crash was real. So in this movie, you've got not only got someone telling you the Roswell crash was real, it was extraterrestrials, they're telling you the ridiculous Virginia story was real as well. You know, the one James Fox has jumped on, and he went to interview those girls as women, and the story's got more and more embellished over time. You know, now there's telepathic communication between the creature and the women. So he tells us. And of course, if you look at an image of the guy Mahindra, whatever his name is, and the description, a graphic of the alien that these girls saw, it's practically identical. If it was raining and the guy's muddy, you know, who knows? I think Occam's razor tells us it's the local guy, spends all his time, you know, with his backside on the floor and his knees under his chin. That's how he lives his life, and they saw him against a wall, you know. And as I've said before, you know, the Virginia incident, the description of the aliens and that they're running around like wild animals, these creatures would be crew members from a starship. But science fiction tells them that they're going to be creatures that need to be rounded up and captured and all this sort of stuff. Now, the Doctor has only appeared on the scene in Fox's movie, talking about treating the alien. Remember, he lanced one of his brain nodules and the thing died? How did he know the alien was even the right way up? This Doctor has only appeared on the scene since Fox has offered $200,000 to anyone that can prove that was a real crash of an extraterrestrial spacecraft. They were real aliens. So now, you know, there are stories coming out. People are trying to get hold of this $200,000. And I saw James Fox interviewing Eric Davis, and he's really frustrated. He's going, why can't we see this stuff? Why can't we see it? Why can't we see it, Eric? Eric's got no more idea about it than Fox has. There's no extraterrestrial technology or biology on this planet. It's complete and utter nonsense. So, you know, I haven't heard that James Fox has paid out $200,000 to anybody. Have you? Put your hand down, Jenkins. We're told a military helicopter pilot. This is another thing. I've gone off at a bit of a tangent here because, as I've said before, I do write these notes at different times. I don't have a great deal of time, so I sort of read them out in order rather than shuffle them around and edit it. We're told a military helicopter pilot mistook a fighter jet for an extraterrestrial spacecraft last week. And people... So the helicopter pilot is saying that's an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Now, how the helicopter pilot was able to glean tangible evidence to link what he was seeing to extraterrestrials, I'm not quite sure. And people have said, look, a military helicopter pilot is going to be able to identify a military jet. He's going to be able to tell the difference between an alien spacecraft and a military jet. Well, first of all, how does a helicopter pilot know what an alien spacecraft looks like? And secondly, a military helicopter pilot flew into an airliner and killed everybody fairly recently, didn't they? And you would think that an airliner is considerably larger than a fighter jet, and it would be lit up like a Christmas tree. The helicopter pilot didn't do a very good job of identifying that, did they? So, put a line through that. That's just more nonsense. It's just fluff. Oh yeah, earlier today I saw another clip of Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis. Now these two are legacy piffle peddlers. They've been putting all this bullshit up for years, and it's only recently that Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff have both said in their own words they have no personal experience with extraterrestrial technology or biology. Eric Davis more recently than Hal Puthoff. He's knocking on a bit, Hal Puthoff. Maybe he forgot about it. I'll see if I can find that clip. I might make a separate video just with comments these people have made. I'm being generous there. I didn't use the word clowns. So, now I believe this is from Dan Farah's new comedy movie. The caption below Hal Puthoff read, ATIP Chief Scientist. The caption below Eric Davis read, ATIP Scientific Advisor. This gives the impression ATIP was a real program funded by the US government. It wasn't. It was a hobby program set up by Lou Elizondo. So have these people just formed like a little ET club? You get a local ham radio club. You've got no paid members. No paid members to do anything. But you've got a president and you've got a treasurer and you've got a secretary, you know. Is it something like that? So they just sit around the table. Okay, we're going to set up this little thing. I'm going to call it ATIP, says Elizondo. How you can be the chief scientist. You can be the scientific advisor, Eric. No money in it, but you can have those impressive titles. How's that? Oh dear, a hobby is a hobby, isn't it? You know. Elizondo tells us there's information being locked away that frankly could improve the lives of every human being on the planet and change the trajectory for our species. Presumably he's referring to free energy. This is a recurring theme amongst these science fiction piffle peddlers, you know. Well, Roswell was real. If only they'd admit it, you know, they could reverse engineer the free energy power source, and it would solve all the world's energy problems. Well, it would, but I mean, the Roswell crash wasn't the crash of an ET spacecraft. I mean, there's no evidence that ETs use free energy. There's no evidence. There's no tangible evidence that free energy even exists. Nothing in nature is free. Do you think the Europeans will be spending billions on ITER? You know, and in Asia, the Chinese and I think Korea building tokamaks for nuclear fusion experiments. ITER is for nuclear fusion. Do you think these countries, and it's a whole swathe of countries that are putting billions into these projects, do you think they would be doing that if they thought free energy was a possibility? If they thought free energy was real, we've just got to find out how to do it. But we're not going to try doing that. We're going to go with fusion. Here's another $10 billion. Do you think that, does that sound likely to you? Doesn't sound very likely to me. It sounds to me like all the top physicists know free energy is complete and utter bullshit. That's why they're putting their time, effort and money into fusion, nuclear fusion. And they're probably right. That is most likely the future power source for the planet. Nuclear fusion. Not going to be free energy. You know, Sheehan and Steve Burchett say the same thing. You know, we've solved the world's energy problems if they just release the information about this free energy. Who else says that? Mellon, you know. Chris Mellon says the same thing. Why don't they just let us have the information about the free energy, solve the planet's energy problems? You know, this is the man that on the first congressional hearing said, look at this big, impressive UAP, and it turned out to be a #1 party balloon. That's Chris Mellon. So, yeah, put a line through free energy. It's complete and utter rubbish. It's just not real. Now, Elizondo and Grusch claim they can't spill the beans due to death threats. Now, this is their feeble excuse for not going to Luna's skiff, you know, or not giving any detail to Arrow that can be checked out. They've had death threats. They have to come up with an excuse for not attending any skiffs that anyone might arrange for them. You know, Burlison arranged a skiff. They know they can't call in sick again. They're going to have to say something else. Same with Luna. If Luna says, you know, I've arranged another skiff for you guys, how you feeling? All feeling good, yeah? No one going to be calling in sick. They're going to have an excuse as to why they cannot attend that skiff. So now it's death threats. You know, Elizondo's written a book about it. He's made a television series about it. He charges people to listen to him giving talks about it. He's on these social media platforms showing pictures of chandeliers he's claiming are motherships. You know, Grusch is coming out with all this bullshit about recovered spacecraft and biologics, you know. But they've had death threats, they can't talk about it. They must think we're all as dumb as they are. They must be as dumb as a box of hammers. Maybe the dyed-in-the-wall fanboys are so blinkered that they really can't see the big picture. They can't see the real picture. All they can see is their heroes telling them what they want to hear. Is that what's going on? But certainly Elizondo and Grusch are a waste of time. Both called in for Luna's skiff along with Chris Mellon. Not one of them attended, because they knew they would have to give details that could be checked. None of these piffle peddlers can give any details that can be checked. because if they're checked, they'll be found to be complete and utter rubbish. They know that. They're milking the gullible. If they knew what they were saying was true, they'd be queuing up at Arrow's door and Luna's skiff and Burlison's skiff to get their stories verified with impressive detail. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, we can check all that out. We can go to a place and we can see these recovered materials. We can see these little aliens in jars. Doesn't happen, does it? Because it's all bullshit. Complete and utter rubbish. Sounds like they're knocking off over the road now. So these guys know they can't keep calling in sick. They've got to come up with a better excuse as to why they cannot attend these skiffs. It would be blindingly obvious if they called in sick again what was going on. Personally, I think it's blindingly obvious what's going on because they all called in sick last time. And I think it would be blindingly obvious to anybody with an IQ bigger than their shoe size. These people are just bullshitters. So, you know, the death threats don't prevent them from appearing all over social media, making TV programs, writing books, giving talks. Death threats, don't stop them doing that. Now, these piffle peddlers tell us that this reverse engineering program, you know, you've got these defence contractors working on reverse engineering these recovered alien spacecraft, and it's more secret than the development of the atomic bomb. It's more secret than the development of the atomic bomb. Yet we've got all of these people telling us about it all over social media, you know, they're on TV and all this sort of stuff, telling us all about it. It's more secret than the development of the atomic bomb. Now, during the development of the atomic bomb back in the 40s, the Manhattan Project, no one was coming forward and saying to the newspapers, "Oh, we're developing an atomic bomb, you know. I can't tell you anything about it, it's secret." Can you imagine? That's the same thing, isn't it? It's so secret, but they can tell us it's all going on. During the Manhattan Project, nobody appeared on the front page of the newspaper saying we're making an atom bomb. Obviously, because of my NDAs, I can't give you any details. It's ludicrous, isn't it? It's laughable. Just like these people, all these characters are clowns. So, every excuse under the sun not to give any detail, because they know as soon as they give detail, they're screwed. They'll be revealed to be bullshitters immediately, if not sooner. Overnight. They know it's all bullshit. If they thought it was true, they'd have no reason not to go to a skiff and spill the beans, would they? They know if they give any detail, they're screwed. There has to be a really good reason why they can't give any detail. Now it's death threats. Now they're not feeling peaky anymore with a sore throat. They're getting death threats. This story gets more and more pathetic as it rolls on, doesn't it? I'm not sure it's got too far to roll, to be perfectly honest, because I think this new comedy movie by Farah, I think, is going to convince an awful lot of people that there is no evidence. There's not a scrap of tangible evidence to support extraterrestrials coming here and crashing here. And I think if anyone out there watches the movie that's got an IQ bigger than their shoe size, they're going to say, wait a minute, you know, this is not revealing anything. This is just a bunch of people giving opinions. Not one of these 34 people has been able to provide a scrap of tangible evidence to support what they're saying. Not one of them. So, Grusch tells us, he was being interviewed, and he said he was partially cleared into some crashed ET craft activities. He had partial access to the data. Okay. Not the physical evidence itself. He had partial access to the data. He was partially cleared. What does that mean? You think someone's either cleared or they're not cleared. Why would you be partially cleared? What can he see? The ashtrays and the windscreen wipers. Can't see any of the weapons or the propulsion system. Oh dear. So he hasn't seen any no personal experience of extraterrestrial technology or biology, has David Grusch. No. He was partially cleared to see some partial access to data, not the physical evidence. So what did he see? What did he see? One of these flying saucers sticking out of the ground? You know, the sort of bullshit that Danny Sheehan laps up. You know, look at a plane crash. It's just like postage stamp sized bits of metal. You can't tell even what sort of plane it was. Alien spacecraft, flying saucer, crashes at 1,200 miles an hour and it's just sticking out of the ground like a plank of wood, you know. And the reason it's not completely disintegrated is you have to be able to identify it as a flying saucer. You know, they're fake images. So, how many times do I have to say, put a line through Grusch, you know, put a line through Elizondo, put a line through Coulthart and Davis and Nell and Nolan. I've got aliens in my bedroom, Nolan. You know, all these, none of these people. The Katsky. I went into this little flying saucer and it was like a cathedral on the inside. Yeah, sure. Any tangible evidence to support that, Mr. Lakatsky, Dr. Lakatsky? Now you come to mention it, and the dog ate it. It's getting exasperating, isn't it, really? These people are taking everybody, they're taking the gullible for a ride. That's what's happening. And it's obvious to anybody with an IQ bigger than a cheese and pickle sandwich. That's what's going on. There's people that are smart enough to be able to... people that are reasonably bright and they've got critical thinking ability can look right through this complete and utter nonsense. It's only the dyed-in-the-wool fanboys, blinkered fanboys, that can't. And it's their money they're after. And they're certainly not going to be getting any of mine, that's for sure and certain. So... yeah... Now, Dan Farah, I saw Dan Farah being interviewed, and he tells us that nuclear weapons were tested in space, or the nuclear weapons that were tested in space were deliberately designed to bring down ET spacecraft, to shoot fish in a barrel. Now, you know, I've heard this before, and this is beyond ludicrous. You know, it doesn't occur to these people that if ET spacecraft really were visiting the Earth, their detection and avoidance systems would be many orders of magnitude better than ours, better than we could imagine. You're not going to be able to destroy them. You're not going to be able to bring them down. You know, they're going to be flying around in orbit and they're going to go, oh, wait a minute, we'll just scan this thing here. This is a nuclear warhead that's heading up this way. Okay, they're supposed to be able to accelerate from 0 to thousands of miles an hour in a nanosecond, aren't they? They just go, you know, halfway to the moon. And then come back. This is complete and utter rubbish. You know, Joe Rogan seemed to be impressed by that. I thought, yeah, come on, Mr. Rogan, please, you know. This is obviously complete and utter bullshit. We are not going to be able to bring down alien spacecraft. I heard one fanboy say that the Roswell craft may have been brought down by strong radar pulses. Aliens are going to have seen radar before. You know, even if they didn't use it, they would have been through a phase where they used high-power radars. We can't even bring down our own aircraft with radar pulses. It's complete and utter rubbish, you know. Farah also tells us we're flying around the solar system in reverse-engineered spacecraft that have been engineered, been reverse engineered from recovered ET technology. So we're flying around the solar system in spacecraft that have been reverse engineered from ET technology. I've heard this sort of bullshit before, the secret space program, 20 and back to Mars. Now Farah doesn't mention that, but it's just nonsense. It's complete and utter rubbish. Why doesn't the planetary detection system, defence system that's picked up a Muamua and 3-Eye Atlas and 2-Eye Borisov, why doesn't that pick up any of these spacecraft? Farah tells us that none of this technology would be produced to stop any wars. We're not going to see it produced to stop the war in Ukraine. Well, of course we're not, because it doesn't exist. It's a complete fabrication. It's nonsense. Now, if Farah believes this, you can understand why he'd be inclined to believe these people that he's interviewed for his comedy film. So maybe Farah does believe it. But I don't think that says very much for his critical thinking ability. I strongly suspect that Farah, like Fox, is a fanboy. They like making films about this stuff. Goodness knows why these people are trying to convince the general public that extraterrestrials are visiting this planet. What is the purpose of that exactly? Why? Why would the average man in the street need to be convinced that this is going on? It makes no sense, does it? So you're not going to see these things used to stop the war in Ukraine or anywhere else. It's just drivel. You need the IQ of a cheese and pickle sandwich to even consider this to be true. Why don't the Russians or the Chinese detect these reverse engineered US spacecraft that are going out into the solar system? Oh dear. Yeah. I mean, I might say, well, they were cloaked, we can cloak them, but if the alien spacecraft can be cloaked, how would they have known they were above the planet back in the 50s when they tried to destroy them or bring them down with nuclear weapons? None of this makes sense. It's all bullshit, isn't it? It's drivel. Maybe the aliens' cloaking technology wasn't quite up to snuff back in the 50s across the galaxy, but still got a problem with that with that particular module. Got to keep hitting it with a hammer. Oh dear. I saw another fanboy that suggested, it's occurring to even some of these dyed-in-the-wool fanboys that extraterrestrial technology, we're not going to be able to bring down alien spacecraft. We're not going to be able to shoot down extraterrestrial spacecraft. So now they're saying, well, maybe they were gifted, maybe an extraterrestrial spacecraft was gifted to America and the UK and China and Russia. And of course that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, because no alien species with an IQ bigger than a cheese and pickle sandwich is going to give aliens, that's us, technology that can be reverse engineered to allow us to cross the galaxy to get to their planet and potentially destroy them, especially if they look at what's going on around the planet now. Well, everyone's at each other's throats, aren't they? Aliens are not going to gift us technology. Gifting various countries extraterrestrial spacecraft to give them an equal crack at reverse engineering them. Now, I think that's beyond ludicrous. What do you think? The other thing too is you know, you hear the descriptions of these alien spacecraft. It's 30 foot in diameter, you know, it's 40 foot in diameter, usually saucers, aren't they? Straight out of 50s and 60s science fiction. Now, something that size is not going to be this far out in the galaxy. Remember, we were out in the boondocks, on a spiral arm out in the boondocks of the galaxy. Something like that, if this was really going on, something like that is not going to be out here on its own. You know, it's probably come from a big mothership. It's probably orbiting beyond the Clark belt, beyond the geostationary satellites. So it's just sitting out there, launches a few research vessels, small research vessels if you like, these 30, 40 foot diameter things. It sits out beyond the Clark belt, so it can't be detected. You know, there's lots of clutter between it and the planet. And they would be geared up for contingencies. Now, personally, I don't think an alien spacecraft would crash here. I think the technology would be such that the redundant systems and everything else would guarantee that would not happen. Especially if they've got exotic propulsion and they can manipulate gravity. You know, they could almost park up at 20,000 feet and get out with a box of spanners and fix it. But this mothership, the people on the mothership are going to have a contingency plan. So that if one of their little research vessels does come a cropper, they'll recover it. They'll recover the saucer, the spacecraft, and their colleagues and its crew. And there'll be nothing that we could do to prevent that. They've probably got some kind of blister over it. We won't be able to get anywhere near it. That's what will really happen. If they've got the technology to get here from another part of the galaxy, their technology is going to be unimaginable. It's not going to crash. If it did, it would be recovered very quickly. We wouldn't even get a sniff of it. Every scrap would be removed. They're not going to leave their technology and their biology on this planet for us to reverse engineer and analyse. They're just not. It's like militaries during wars. You know, if aircraft have secret equipment on them and the aircraft gets shot down, they destroy the aircraft. They don't leave it there for the enemy to reverse engineer. I mean, when the SEAL Team 6 got Bin Laden, one of the helicopters came a cropper, it crashed. They didn't leave it there when one of these new stealth helicopters. They didn't leave it there to be analysed by the Pakistanis. They destroyed it. Now, aliens wouldn't have to do that because they would have the technology to just recover it. They wouldn't need to completely destroy it. The whole thing is ludicrous. So, yeah. I've jumped ahead a page here. Some of this I didn't write very long ago, so I can remember some of it. Yeah, so they're going to recover. Okay, so that is it. That might have been a fairly short one today. So, you know, there's the reviews, not very good reviews, from Dan Farah's comedy movie that's just been released. The only people that seem to like it at all, think that it might be credible, the dyed-in-the-wall fanboys with the blinkered, it's real outlook. You know, anyone capable of critical thinking ability, anyone with an IQ bigger than a cheese and pickle sandwich will put a line through it and say it's complete and utter bullshit. Just look at the people that are in it. As I said in the video last week, just look at the sort of bullshit they've been saying. You know, being chased around with werewolves. You know, there's a picture of a chandelier. You know, Gallaudet, I've no personal experience of extraterrestrial technology or biology. My house is haunted and my daughter is psychic. You know, these are the people that are on there. None of them are worth listening to. Not one of them. And remember, of the 34 people Dan Farah interviewed, not one of them could offer a scrap of tangible evidence to support what they're saying. Not one. Until that happens, it's science fiction rubbish. Alright, well, as always, if you've struggled through the video all the way to this point, many thanks for watching, and maybe I'll catch you again.